Well, hello, Texans. It's football time in Houston. Marc, Vandermeer, John Harris with you with Glenn Davis. I don't even know how to describe you, Glenn. You're Houston's soccer guru, soccer guy.
You can just stop at Houston soccer. Like,
Yeah, Glenn
Houston
Davis.
soccer, boom.
It's
done.
almost like you don't need a title. You're Glenn
Right.
Davis, soccer, Houston.
Yeah.
That's it. Welcome.
Guys, I don't know about that, but I appreciate being here, and I'm excited to talk with you about the game.
Well, I mean, listen, when we think about soccer in Houston, I mean, you're the name that comes up. I mean, we think of your name because you've seen everything in this particular town. So, Glenn, as we get started talking about this, obviously the events that we have in our building connected with us with LSSE, how big a deal is Copa America? I know it's come to America for a few years. It come to the United States, I think, a few years ago. Now it's back in 2024. So before we kind of get into the games itself, but how big a deal is it to the countries and nations that actually play in Copa America?
It is a big deal. It's an incredibly historic cup that's played for. Obviously, you mentioned it. It was here, the Copa Centenario. It was the anniversary of it. But it's essentially a World Cup of South America. Now, it's played in the U.S. for obvious reasons. And then you add in some CONCACAF teams, which is our region of the country,
Right.
United States, Mexico. You got Panama in it. But it is very prestigious to the South Americans. It's very important for us as a soccer country because we have the opportunity in our group to go up against what is next level competition, the Uruguays of the world, and like we did in the friendly the other night, Brazil. So
Yeah.
I would say the simplest way to describe it, it's the World Cup of South America, and then we'll have the World Cup of the world here in 2 years.
Yeah.
So
that's
that's
good.
my easiest way of kind of
Yeah.
explaining what it is to those who don't know it. And listen, we got a city full of people who know exactly what the Copa America is, but
Yeah.
it is a prestigious, historic cup. The cup is actually, the physical cup is beautiful.
Well, let's get into some of the games here because June 22nd and June 24th, we have Mexico, Jamaica, then Colombia, Paraguay, right?
Yeah.
So Mexico, Jamaica, Mexico's been here numerous times. I mean, anybody who has not seen a match featuring Mexico here, and Mexico, U.S. has been here numerous times as well. But anytime Mexico plays, you got to be there, right? The atmosphere is incredible.
See, it is incredible. And listen, you haven't lived until you've been at a Mexican national team game and had beer dumped on you. You know what I mean? I mean, it's it's an incredible brand.
I love the colors, by the way.
It sells,
L3.
well, yeah, the L tree and the green, and although they're wearing maroon a lot, so I hope they bust out the old
Why are they
green
doing
jersey.
that? Is that their alt
Oh,
uniform?
come on, you know why they're doing that, Mark. You don't
Everybody's got an all uniform somewhere.
Okay.
yeah. But listen, they're in a little bit of transition under Jaime Lozano, who's their head coach, who, by the way, interviewed for the Houston Dynamo job.
Wow.
He's the head coach of Mexico. They've moved out some of the older players now, and they're in a bit of transition coming into this Copa America, which is going to be interesting to see because it was an interesting time to pick transitioning a roster and a team. It's getting a little bit more youthful now. But they are in a place where they get incredible heavy criticism. They have healthy pressure and unhealthy pressure like nothing we have in soccer in this country.
Wow.
So when they come to play, the expectations are always high. And, you know, Jamaica is always very athletic, a team that, from a physical standpoint, will compete with Mexico. They just don't ever seem to really get over the top, but they will be competitive. So it's going to be a fun night.
Colombia, Paraguay, a couple nights later. Your thoughts on? I mean, you said, "Ooh." I mean, that's that.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna make you do something that maybe it might be more difficult because I think for a lot of people listening, listen to us for the NFL aspect. Colombia, Paraguay, on a level of NFL games, where would you kind of put this? Is it kind of like Texans, Chiefs, or is it kind of like I don't know, Cardinals, Titans? Is this a big one?
I would say it's slightly below Texans, Chiefs, and one of the reasons is, you know, it would be below that. But
Yeah.
but one of the reasons is Colombia now is unbeaten in 22 games. I don't think most people knew that when
Yeah.
they played the U.S. the other night, and they smacked the U.S. 5-1.
Yeah.
They have an Argentine coach who's an amazing story named Nestor Lorenzo, who has never been a head coach his entire career. And, you know, that kind of is a red flag to me. It's kind of like, okay, maybe you're a lifer as an assistant coach. Well, all of a sudden he took a job as a head coach in Peru for a year with a club and then got the Colombia job because he was an assistant. It's 22 straight now without a loss.
Wow.
And, you know, we all know the cultural headbanging that goes on with all these countries in South
Yeah.
America. They always claim it is the most difficult World Cup qualifying process that there is, South America. You have to play so many games. They brutalize each other. They beat each other up. They all have their own cultural way of playing the game. So this is a good one. And just for all the Premier League fans, you got Luis Diaz, who's a winger for Colombia.
Oh,
And
yeah.
this guy's a game changer.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah, he's fun to watch.
Wait, how many?
He's fun to watch.
Pardon my ignorance about some of this soccer stuff, but how many teams from South America would qualify for the World Cup?
Oh man, you're asking me a question. I think it's 6, but this is a different World Cup, so you're getting ahead here because this is the first time ever there's going to be, and I don't like this honestly,
Okay.
but I think is it 48 teams? Yeah, it's
Oh, so
48.
they
they're
expanded the
increasing the
field.
teams. Ah,
You don't
yes,
like
the
that?
field.
Why not? Let them all in.
Can't stand it. No,
No.
because listen, the World Cup
Waters
is the
it
most.
down?
Yeah, I agree, John.
Yeah.
I mean, the World Cup is the most unique event. You have to wait every 4 years. You have to go through this qualifying process. You're going to demystify it, and you're going to, at some point, it's going to be, hey, we all get to participate. And I get it from the motivation of monetization
Sure.
and all these things. But from just the lore and history of it, I mean, there are guys who've made one play in the World Cup, and they've never, ever been forgotten, magical moments. And the more you expand this thing and make it more nebulous, the more that I think you are a little bit of an assault, honestly.
You
on
dilute it a little
something
bit.
that is so special. You don't have to change everything, but I guess you do for money.
I say what I just said, and I'm the guy who says NCAA tournament,
Yes,
hard
exactly.
line 64.
I was thinking the same thing. That's exactly
See
what
that?
people think.
See
You go,
that, Marc?
go to 128,
You're
let them
in-
all in.
You're
and,
in my camp.
Yeah.
See,
There you
yeah, I
go.
guess I am after
Yeah.
all. And NFL playoffs, too. I mean, they've expanded, but 7 per conference seems like enough. You go to one more, you get half the league
Yeah.
in the postseason, and it just doesn't seem right. All right, we talked
Look, I
about.
love MLS too, but by the way, when there's 62% of the teams make the playoffs, can you really say it's a must-win game in May? Of course not. I mean,
way.
come on.
You get a lot of margin
And you're
for
not
error.
even mathematically eliminated until there's
Exactly.
3 weeks left.
Yeah.
And generally, there's we won't get into the whole playoff versus promotion relegation thing, but generally there's certain times of the year where the urgency is lifted.
Interesting. All right, so we talked about the 22nd and the 24th. July 4th is the Copa quarterfinal here at NRG Stadium. Now, that could possibly be Argentina.
Yeah.
So we'll look forward to that on Independence Day, taking in Messi in Argentina. That'd be awesome.
It would be remarkable. And listen, we already know he's coming here with Inter Miami to
August
take on
3rd.
Tigres. We can talk about that in a minute. But can you imagine if we had him here twice in
yeah.
one summer?
Yeah.
I mean, it's remarkable. And I saw him the other day. I think they were in Chicago, Argentina. Streets were flooded outside his hotel. It's unbelievable.
Oh, man.
It's unbelievable.
They can't get enough of him.
Yeah, you can't. And you know what I like about him as an athlete, and I'm interested to hear your opinions on this, but I love the fact that there's however he can do it with his immense fame and fortune is just the humility that the guy carries himself with, right? Never anything controversial. He's not taking pictures of his abs. He's a family guy. He's playing with his kids in the back. I love this type of athlete that you just look at him and you go, his priority is playing this game that he loves.
If I had abs, I'd take pictures of them. I
Yeah,
think.
absolutely. Glenn, how much validation to his career, to his legacy, how valuable was winning the World Cup in 2022 for Messi?
Huge, because he was always compared with Diego Maradona in Argentina, and Messi had the longer, the more successful club career. Not that Maradona didn't do some amazing things at Napoli,
Right.
But he's the Champions League winner. He's the face of Barcelona. He was there as a little kid. So I think it's huge that he won that because it's just another big piece of hardware. And back to our conversation about what the World Cup means,
Right.
which we have in Houston in 2026. I mean, it's everything to a soccer player.
So along those lines, Messi coming to the MLS. I think when I first saw that, my first thought was, okay, when I was a little kid, Pele comes to he comes to the Cosmos, and he was near. I want to say he's near the end of his career, but he was near the end of his career, and he still was electric. It was still fun to watch him. I kind of got that feeling with Messi, but I feel like Messi's got more in the tank. How do you
Yeah.
kind of look at those situations with Messi coming to MLS?
Yeah, they're different. I mean, look, we've had 3 watershed moments in this country. You named it, Pelé with the Cosmos.
Right.
I was fortunate to be around that. I don't know where I'd be with soccer without that influence also. And then you had David Beckham,
Right.
who came
Yeah.
at a really needful time when the league, prior to that, a few years, potentially was going to go under, if not for Philip Anschutz floating a bunch of the teams.
Right.
So, you got to remember that. Beckham just boosted the awareness. All of a sudden, other guys were coming over.
Yep.
And then Messi now is our third watershed moment.
Right.
Because this is the most identifiable athlete in the world, in my opinion. Soccer's global, as we all know.
Yeah.
Every game you watch, you'll see somebody wearing a Messi jersey. It could be in any corner of the planet or Earth. So there's just this amazing attraction. But what he's done for the league, the eyeballs, nobody ever knew who Inter Miami was.
Right.
Now they know who they are. Now they watch MLS. So it's a great effect.
How blown is your mind over? Because you and I used to talk in the early days of
Yeah.
the Dynamo when I was doing my show on 610 Daily. And back then, Dynamo played at Robertson Stadium. It wasn't what it is today with these stadiums that have been constructed all around the country. It feels like every market's got a soccer stadium, in some cases 2. What do you think of that, the growth of the sport in that way?
It's pretty remarkable, and it's happened in a short amount of time if you really think about it.
Right.
I mean, when I played in the 80s, nobody ever even had a conversation that they would build a stadium specifically for soccer. You either played in a high school stadium or you played in an NFL stadium. Some of them don't even exist anymore.
Right.
I was just back at the Citrus Bowl. I played in there once, and I was like, hey, I played a couple games in here, and the Stones are up here in front of 75,000, except I played in front of 2,000.
Yeah.
So anyway, but yeah, it really is remarkable. I'd give my left leg to play in one of these stadiums. I mean, they're just spectacular. They're intimate. Fans are on top of you. I mean, we've got this amazing stadium here, Shell Energy, as you guys know. But I don't think these things, you get older and your lens gets deeper by the day. And I still scratch my head sometimes when I see these stadiums and the ones that are being built. I mean, it's just remarkable, really, the infrastructure and the amount of money in the game.
Glenn, growing up, I don't remember ever seeing English soccer on television. I didn't remember ever. I mean, for a long time, I didn't even know what Champions League was. But now I can watch English Premier League every Saturday, Sunday throughout, months, especially when football season's over. Every February, March, April, those weekends, I'm watching English Premier League. My team is Man City, and I'm not ashamed to say that. But
We know.
but then Champions League too. You could see that on CBS Sports, and you could stay on top of that. And kind of once you learn what Champions League is, I think it makes everything that much more exciting to watch as soccer fans. It feels like I'm like a lot of people in America that have kind of grabbed onto an EFL team or a Premier League team. That's our team. That's who we go with. But the recognition of the league has kind of made soccer that much more, okay, I understand this. I like this. I'll watch a soccer match way more than people were doing maybe in the 90s or early 2000s. What's been the in your opinion, what's been the impact of having English Premier League on NBC, on Peacock or whatever it is? What's that been like for, in your opinion, for people that haven't been as engrossed in soccer as you have been nowadays? Because there are people more like me jumping in, wanting to watch Nottingham Forest taking on Everton because it might mean promotion or relegation for one of the two. What's that all been like?
And it might mean there's some people who live here from Nottingham. I mean, the
absolutely.
access to games now is incredible. I mean, when I was growing up, there was a half-hour highlight show from Germany, and there was a half-hour highlight show from England. We got to go to the Cosmos, so we were very lucky just geographically where we were, and that they had decided to bring in all these superstars from the global game. But I think this is how the game, people's introduction to the game can be a lot of different things.
Right.
It could be your son or daughter playing, but to have it on TV as often as it is, and you can find any team that you want in the Premier League, the English Championship. Listen, every single college game, not that it's high quality, but most colleges you can stream and watch your son or daughter play. So the access is incredible. Now, seeing the Premier League and Champions League all the time there, it does set a real high bar when you're comparing it to other leagues around
Yeah.
the world,
Yeah.
including
Right.
our MLS. So people can get a little bit Eurocentric and, and a little Euro entitled and have a hard time kind of differentiating between
Right.
the salary cap of the Premier League and the minuscule in comparison salary cap of MLS. And when you look at the MLS salary cap and what some of these teams and guys are doing with it, it's pretty remarkable.
Yeah.
Quality that they put out.
Yeah.
All right, so you do what you do. Glenn Davis with us, Houston's soccer guru, for lack of a better way of describing him. You got your show on 97.5. You call Dynamo games. We'll get to that in a moment. But what are you a fan of, Glenn? What do you consume? Do you have a team that you like above all else, internationally or nationally? I mean, besides the Dynamo, but what is it that drives you as a fan these days? Having played the game and now you're such a consumer, obviously you're a commentator, but just what floats your boat that
I'm
way?
all of those things. I was even called a cheerleader once, and I said, "Yeah, you're right. I mean, it's okay. It's okay. Soccer.
We've never been accused of that.
Yes, never signed 3-13 in one season.
Well, the guy who said it to me, I was like, listen, yeah, you're right. But I'm not a cheerleader anymore because I don't have to be. Okay.
right.
It stands on its own now with participation and eyeballs and the connection all over the world. You look at all the American ownership in leagues all over the world now. It's crazy. I mean, look
Yeah.
at what Jeff Lunau's done.
Yeah.
Jeff
Yeah.
Lunau
Yeah.
bought a second division team in Spain. They just got promoted to the first, called Leganés. They're going to be
Wow.
playing Real Madrid and Barcelona. Imagine the cash windfall when you
Wow.
get promoted like that. So what do I consume? I'm a huge U.S. men's national team fan, obviously,
Okay.
because I'm from the American system. Why wouldn't I be, right? I'm a huge Dynamo fan over all these years. I always want's best for the Dynamo in this market because I think it's a great market. I'm not afraid to give my feelings about it. I do
Right.
believe every single one of these Dynamo games should be sold out. This is a city full of authentic soccer fans, but I don't really. I look for the quality of the game, the uniqueness of it. Maybe it's a player or a player I don't know
Sure.
about. Listen, my eyes, like everybody else, has gotten drawn to the WNBA because of watching the amazing Caitlin Clark play
Yeah.
the game and the variety of skills that she has.
Yep.
Without getting into all the other garbage that's going on. So I think it's a lot of different things that draw you.
So along those lines, Glenn, who in the world of soccer, if you were sitting and talking with somebody, you were selling the world of soccer, and you mentioned Caitlin Clark, and that kind of popped in my head.
Sure.
Who's the one player that you would say you got to go see this guy, or maybe this woman? I don't know. Which player would you say to appreciate the game itself, to see everything about the game, the beauty of it? What player would you want them to go see?
So they're creators, they're skilled
Right.
players, right? I mean, that's
Exactly.
kind of the thing with Caitlin Clark, I think, is that I get it. You're big, tall, you're under the basket, and that part of the game. I like the creators.
Right.
So I like Messi. I like people who handle the ball. I like people who take more of the risk, are trying things that are maybe a little bit unique. And the
Right.
world's full of these types
Yeah.
of guys. Of course, Messi,
Yep.
Kylian Mbappe
Yep.
of France, who's going to be in the Euros that are coming up. They start.
And him going to Real Madrid, that's a bigger deal than I think anybody knows. I mean, Real Madrid just wins champions, and now they add Mbappe.
Yeah.
I mean, is that now a quote-unquote super team at Real Madrid with what they've got?
I think they've always been a super team. They've won more Champions League titles than ever before. Listen, Vinicius Jr., we just had him up in College Station, 85,000 people. I mean,
That's
Yeah.
incredible.
this game is limitless. I mean, it's infinity we're looking at here in the future.
Yeah.
All right, so Johnny and we were in London in 2019 when the Texans took on the Jaguars, and Shad Khan owns Fulham. And we were invited to Fulham to be in a suite and watch Fulham play. I forget who they were playing that day, Johnny.
Hull City.
Okay.
I remember Hull City.
Hull
Okay.
City.
So we're walking around this small little town, it feels like, or section of London with pretty low buildings, 2-3-story buildings, max, old buildings. And all of a sudden it's, here's Craven Cottage, the stadium. Now, I fell in love at that moment because we walk into this area, it says oldest football facility in London. And I thought, this is awesome because you wouldn't even know it's there almost. You could walk by it and it's an actual soccer stadium right on the Thames, right? So it's just not downtown London, but it's outside a little bit. And I was blown away by the whole atmosphere. And they were still constructing this riverside part of it, but it didn't matter. It was a phenomenal place to be. And I just felt the whole vibe of it. And last summer, I was with my family in London. We toured Chelsea Stadium because it was postseason. And they said, yeah, Fulham's right down the street, basically. It's a couple of miles away. That boggles the mind that the Premier League teams are worth what they're worth, billions or whatever, and they have more fans, apparently, outside of England than in. And that speaks to your point about it being a global game and the access that you have to all these matches now.
100%. The beauty and the difference is these provincial teams, like you're saying. So that's replicated all over in England in the various divisions of the league. So these teams, they were the only game in town. They are, it turns over generationally, the season tickets. Everybody's mood is altered and probably business is altered by the success or failure of the team. And it's highly identifiable. It's not like the U.S. So whenever you get somebody that says to you, oh, soccer's not big in America. No, it's not true. It's an American game. But you also have to quickly factor in that there's 3 other traditional sports here, maybe 4. There's lifestyle. There's all these different things that come into play here when it comes to choice. But if you're growing up in Hull or you're growing up in Sheffield, you know, you're either a Sheffield United fan or a Sheffield Wednesday fan. That is what is close to you, and that's what's in the fabric of your being.
Right.
So it's hard for people to understand unless you've ever visited there. And I spent an off-season, 6 weeks training at Sheffield United once back in the 80s. What an education that was for me. You know, to see how woven into the fabric of the community the pro team was.
Glenn, once I learned about promotion and relegation, and I kind of started understanding.
You proposed it to the NFL, right?
Well, no, that's what I'm gonna ask you. Maybe not to the NFL,
College football,
but college football seems like it might be prime for something like that. Do you think that promotion relegation, even though it's a concept foreign to a lot of people and obviously a lot of administrators throughout and high-ranking officials here in the United States, because I think watching a match where a team has the possibility of getting relegated, this happened actually, it wasn't Fulham, it was Everton, I think. It was a couple of years ago, and they were right on the line, and they had to win this game to stay in Premier League, and they ended up winning it, and the celebration was unbelievable. Like, they are celebrating for being in 16th place. I thought it was incredible. Do you think promotion/relegation could ever work in an American-based sport like football or one of the other sports that we have here? Do you think it could work?
I think it could work, but I don't know if it'll work from the capacity of people wanting it to work because we're a playoff country, right?
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah,
we're
that's
all
true.
about
That's
playoffs,
true.
keeping people engaged.
Yeah.
I mean,
Yeah.
that's the model of a lot of the pro leagues, right? It's basically, hey, we don't want somebody to lose their first 4 games and the season's over and nobody wants to buy tickets and the interest wanes, right?
Right.
You got to keep people engaged, and that's part of the way these playoff systems are set up. I think it's highly dramatic. I mean, as someone that's a soccer purist, my take on who has a good season is who's put together the most consistent season, right?
Right.
So in MLS, a lot of times you'll have the team that had the most consistent body of work during the year get knocked out in the playoffs. And a lot of times it happens in the first or second round.
Right.
And they were the best team over a time period.
Right.
But really, that's just kind of swept away and dismissed. So it just depends on how you look at it. And I think they both have their merits.
It's interesting you said about the playoffs because when you listen to English soccer fans talk about the playoffs, it's almost because you didn't get one of those top 1 or 2 promoted spots. Now you got to fight for it. They almost look at the playoffs as a bad thing. Like, it's still a lifeline, but they almost look at it like, oh, we've got to play in the playoffs now. And I find it fascinating because over here it's like, oh, no, we're in the playoffs. We got a shot. But for them, it almost feels like the playoffs, it's almost a backhanded slap like, well, we're in, but I don't know, we got to play our way through it. They don't like it. It's so true, the difference in just the word playoffs and what it means there and here.
Guys, when they come to MLS, have to adjust to it. Like I've talked to players off the record, and they're like, the hell is going on? I mean, there's no pressure on it. No, there's
Really?
But healthy pressure is something that this league needs.
Okay.
Certainly the Dynamo need it. Certainly we need it from the media down here. It just, but you know, when you look at that and you say the difference between being promoted or relegated, the amount of money that these games, you know, they're it's beyond my comprehension.
Right. The franchise value skyrockets, like you mentioned, Spain. With
You know,
Luno's
you got
team.
an owner who's about to jump off the ledge if they don't, remain in the Premier League.
Dynamo, as we speak, 7th in the West?
Yeah.
So how's it going? Where's it headed this year?
Well, they just made a big signing, and it's one that I think the fans have been clamoring for. It's an actual striker, a finisher, and a goal scorer. His name is Ezequiel Ponce. He comes from Argentina. He comes from a team in Greece called AEK Athens.
Yeah, no well.
And he's probably scored a goal every 2 games there. The Dynamo have needed a striker to complement a lot of the other pieces they put in place. So I think the fans are going to be excited about this. This guy comes from a club in Argentina called Newell's Old Boys, which is Messi's club as a kid, and it's a known club for developing soccer players. So I think there's a lot of excitement to see how he's going to adapt to MLS. He's coming off a season scoring goals in Greece for a second or third place team. So we'll see. He'll get to start playing at the end of July, and they're going to hope that he adapts very, very quickly and can be the difference in a playoff league where now you're getting into the money time, and he can help them ascend.
Glenn, we were talking earlier about Copa America and the United States involvement in it. Obviously, it's taking place in America. Houston's got a couple of matches in the group stage, and then they've got one in the quarterfinal stage. We looked at the U.S. men's national team because it was announced today what they're going to have for Copa America, the 26th there on the roster. Your overall thoughts to the American roster, how it's constructed, and what you think for Copa America?
So never in our history of soccer in the U.S. have we had guys on big clubs all over the world, like, Chelsea, Juventus, Milan. I mean, never in our history have we had players at this level, raw material wise, right? So I think there's a real pressure on the U.S. to do well. Now they have got some tremendously young, talented guys that I like a lot. And if you guys remember that time when we didn't qualify for the World Cup,
Yes.
the world was falling.
Yep.
It was, but then when you thought, okay, now you can accelerate these younger guys, right? You can sweep out some guys that have been great servants. You can put these young guys in. You can accelerate it. And there's some wonderful guys on this team. I do think, though, that they have to go quarterfinals or beyond. Come on, it's in the United States. You got it here in 2026. We have to raise the bar.
Right.
Even the other night, everybody, it was a good comeback. We played well against Brazil. And they did. And they played with fire and with energy. But my first comment was, okay, but when are we going to win that game?
Yeah.
When are we going to win the game where we outplay England in the World Cup?
Yep.
But we don't take what we deserve. We don't produce the goal to win this thing. What is that? Is that a mentality? Is that what is that? And you can't just say, well, if only we took that chance. No, there's something else there. So I think there has to be real pressure on the manager, Greg Berhalter. It's in the United States. This is a tremendous dress rehearsal, and you're going to get to play teams like Uruguay, who are high-end level, top teams in the world, and you measure yourself to that.
I've got one more. How hard is it for players who play on different clubs all over the world to come together on a national team, which is basically an all-star team, and play well together as a unit? How difficult is that process?
I think it's very difficult, but I think it's a known entity. So, as coaches and managers of these teams, they have playing styles in place. There's constant communication with these guys. They talk about the way they're going to play. So yes, it's difficult. Yes, people are fatigued. Yes, they have long season. Yes, the athlete is overburdened, but it's just the way it is.
It's a year-round sport.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, there is no rest, especially if you're on national teams. It's about as many games as possible. It's about playing as much as possible. It's about the stars being out there. But, you have to come in and adapt quickly. And I think if a team has a really good concept that is sort of a unified concept like the U.S. has been noted for over the years, and that is one of our strengths. We play for each other. I think it, you can't use it as an excuse, I guess, is what I'm trying to say.
Cool. Well, we're looking forward to Copa America, June 22nd, June 24th, July 4th, and, of course, August 3rd with Inter Miami taking on Tigres. Going to be awesome. excellent atmosphere. Thank you, Glenn Davis, for joining us.
Marc, John, thanks for having me on. I really enjoyed it.
Yeah, man, you're welcome here anytime, Glenn. Thank you.